Hello, and a very warm welcome to each of you. Today, we'll be going through a workshop called Building Connection and Communication Before the Baby Arrives. This comes as a part of the pregnancy journey in the HERA program, and I, Dr. Shoma, will be guiding you through this workshop. Preparing for pregnancy can have so many layers, but essentially, of course, the pregnancy is a biological journey that we take on. And for the mother and for the couple, the hormonal shifts and the consequent effects on life can be stunning, huge, right? And it's very, very important to understand these and have a little bit information about these so we know what we are dealing with and how we can support each other as a couple as we go through this. This is also a very powerful time to set certain intentions about how we would deal with things as a couple, what can we do to strengthen our already solid relationship because there's a test coming for us. And preparation goes a long way in this journey. So today's workshop will be looking at all of these topics by quickly taking a dive into the neurobiology and hormones of pregnancy, understanding the impacts it has, how these changes can show up in various aspects of our couple relationship, and some very usable practical tools will be shared so that you know what to do or what you go to in a moment of crisis or conflict. All things are normal at this point. There's really no need to worry too much or overthink things. Different couples will experience this differently. There's really no right one way. This program is just an agent, just a way to go through and understand these processes. Before we even begin, I would like to give you a small disclaimer that nothing that's shared over here is a one size fits all. And you're welcome to take what you can and sort of edit it, talk about it with your partner, and then find what's usable in it and apply it to your situation. A lot of trial error may be required in this. So let's get started. So, what makes this topic, preparation and building our bond as a couple, so important in this time is the fact that the coming of a baby and the months following are a test for even the best of marriages, the best of relationships. So, whatever we think are our strengths, they're definitely going to be tested in the months to come. And whatever be the areas that we have to take a little effort in, it's actually very, very powerful to do that back end work now so that when something gets a little stretched or things are a little demanding, we know that we've taken care of it. A large part of this, of course, is very hard because of the very powerful hormonal shifts that the pregnant mother is going through. The scale at which the hormones start to rise in the first 3 months is unfathomable for someone who's not gone through a pregnancy, and so are the physical, emotional changes that come with it. And in this moment, although not much can be done to change things biologically, we can do a lot in our responses, in our ways of speaking, in our ways of holding both the mother and the couple that can go a very, very long way in making this not so, making this difficult parts of this journey not absolutely something that feels like an end of a road. What do we need for that? We, of course, need tools. And this workshop will share with you some of these tools that help you sort of strengthen your relationship, deepen your communication, because these are two very big factors that determine the outcomes, both for you as a couple and then the baby that's coming. So let's take a look at all the changes that happen across the trimesters. You'll be surprised to know that yes, there is a fourth trimester, and that's probably going to be one of the most challenging ones with a tiny baby. But let's look at the first trimester. So you may have heard things about morning sickness and nausea and absolutely backbreaking fatigue. Those are actually all very powerful signs of what the body is doing at that point. Yes, so the major pregnancy hormones, especially HCG, are skyrocketing at this point. And although they will continue to rise through the trimesters, it is the most stark rise is seen in the first trimester, and they will sort of stabilize by 12 weeks or so. And what do these cause? Of course, they cause nausea, lack of appetite, lots of tiredness, very, very intense mood swings. So pregnant moms are known, right, to just start to cry at the drop of a hat or feel very, very moved by seeing an ad of some baby product or a difficult moment in a TV show. It's really because the hormones have really upped their game internally, and those changes are showing up in the mother's emotions. And very often, pregnant moms will also tell you little later that, I don't know why that impacted me so much. It's because they are also able to see that where their baseline emotional functioning is and what the hormones have done to their pregnancy is different. And what may just help is asking them, what about it? What thoughts are they having? What did something remind them of that they were so moved to tears or got so angry? And that may just be just the amount of effort that it needs, the check in, the making some welcome space for her emotions that will help you sail through that. The second trimester is the joyful one. Your body has now adjusted to the hormones. You probably feel a lot of energy. You've got baby fever. You may feel like, I want to do this, I want to do that. This is probably the best trimester, if you ask me. And generally, what may be the most memorable way to mark this is to do things together. Do things with your partner, do things with yourself, set up the systems you want at home and at work so that the next trimester, when things are starting to wind down and energy becomes more scarce, this part is taken care of. The third trimester, of course, is a time of increasing weight and bulk, and you may feel a little tired. You may find mobility a little difficult. And at some point, because of the hormone oxytocin, nesting instincts will kick in. So you'll want to do up your nursery, make space for your baby. All of those natural instincts of mothering come into sort of fruition in the third trimester. And generally, at this point, being a little bit more on the task orientation may help because there's a lot to do as we run down to the D day of pregnancy. And also taking care of our body in ways that may feel soothing, baths, massages, being a little aware of our changing capacity from week to week as we head towards the end of the pregnancy may be very, very important. All of these are actually generally things we think that the mother does, but there's a lot of value to doing this together. So it may be that in the beginning of a week, we set a time when we talk about the things we have to check off our list today or in this week. And parents together can also make plans, can sort of fulfill some tasks that can be done individually, some tasks that need to be done together. Say you're going shopping for the nursery, maybe that's something you need to do together. It makes sense for even dads to be a little invested, ask questions, do some research. So the labor of these things does not feel like it's the mother's alone. And then comes the fourth trimester. The fourth trimester is actually called so because the human baby is actually born at a very high level of dependence with or on the parents at birth. Most other species have babies who are a little bit more independent or mobile at the time of birth, but human babies need a lot of cocooning care, very, very intense holding in the first 3 months, which of course has a biological linkage and a cause, etc. But what that translates into is a really overwhelming set of weeks for the most prepared parents. And what may help there is making space for these shifts rather than fighting it, making intentions to support functioning in whatever way we can, prioritizing whatever rest that the mom can get, and taking help because this is not something that we can navigate. So, teamwork, a lot of grace, a lot of asking for help may go a long way. At this moment, I'd like you to just pause for a bit and check in if you learned something about these trimesters because very often these demands are not spoken of as much, and we think of the pregnancy as just one chunk of 9 months that are very beautiful to look at, but we don't know the inside of these things. So just make a note or two of some of the things you heard and sort of make it tangible for you at this point before we move on. Let's look at the hormones behind the feels. So HCG, the human chorionic gonadotropin hormone, is the one that we look for when we are testing for pregnancy. So that's the one that we carry around in a stick and we feel like, wow, this magic has happened. But the beauty of this hormone is it skyrockets for the first few months, and this is the one that prepares the body for the pregnancy in a way. HPL is to do with the placenta, and this vaccine helps the baby grow and also manages the insulin levels. Sometimes challenges in managing the level of HPL is what leads to gestational diabetes. And then you have progesterone and estrogen, which are the actual dominant female hormones. Progesterone basically helps the body arrive into the pregnancy. It also helps menstruation stop, and estrogen makes space for what the pregnancy needs to thrive and survive. Relaxin is the one that makes your joints more loose as your body expands. So sometimes pregnant women feel very clumsy, or you feel like, okay, I had better balance like some time back. And what just happened? Well, it's your body and its joints relaxing and opening up in preparation for childbirth. Prolactin is the one that prepares the body for breastfeeding, and oxytocin, which is why we sort of spend a lot of time cuddling or holding the mother or supporting the mother emotionally. It's because we want to promote natural oxytocin in the body of the mother, especially as we are nearing birth, because oxytocin is the one that actually promotes labor and helps the parents bond with the baby. Even fathers are actually going through some of these phases of bonding, and there can be hormonal changes in a very smaller level for fathers as well. Now, with all these hormones at play, mood, motivation, mobility, bonding, connection, all of these can, of course, be very, very impacted. And it makes sense to have like a basic template of mood management or an emotional well being plan, even when we start to notice the shifts very early in pregnancy. To do that, there are two parts. One, of course, may be to validate that these changes are happening to me. Pregnancy is momentous emotionally for the mother as well, and so to acknowledge and validate that these feelings are coming, these feelings are a part of a much larger change and transformation that I'm going through, and learn to reach out to our support system. And the second thing is to build a toolkit or an emotional toolkit which sort of puts together ideas of, what is a typically good way in which I cope before, what was a strength. Did I like to go on walks? Did I like to read? Did I like to catch a TV show? Apart from that, if these work, I continue these. If some of those have to be changed to gentler or certain other practices based on the pregnancy, you may want to reach out to a support group. Here runs a community of pregnant moms. You can also look for a therapist if that's something you're open to. And generally, sort of having this plan tangibly out there, keeping it written somewhere, sharing it with your friends and family. So when you're overwhelmed and you can't think through, even they can then tell you, didn't you want to do this thing? Didn't you want to go to the parlor? You think that would help you? So small things like this put down intentionally would constitute a well-being plan. And it's important also to edit this plan as we go. But the main thing of something like this is that it makes us a little bit more intentional in how we carry ourselves through the mood swings of the first trimester and later on in pregnancy as well. Now, communication as a couple who are expecting can get a little stretched. One, there are lots of changes, and it's impossible for the other partner to understand what the birthing partner may go through. It may only sort of serve to worsen some of the already present rifts or problem areas that we have in the relationship. And the baby, and once the baby comes, of course, communication can really, really suffer. So this is something that couples who are expecting really need to prioritize and sort of put some hygiene into at this stage. So of course, simply put, being able to talk freely can help us make feel closer to the other person. But there are certain barriers to that. It can be very easy to misconstrue or not understand what one partner is saying. The other partner can get rebuffed so much that they stop trying, etc., in the first place. So, I want to first give you three words to keep in mind. The first is awareness. Awareness means knowing that at this point, this may be what my partner is going through. In this week or this month of the pregnancy, these changes are expected, and these things can make my partner feel this way. Let it be something that, even the male partners or the non-birthing partners are aware of or take interest in. So then you know what questions to ask your partner. The second thing is, don't leave communication to chance. Be a little bit more intentional about it. Scheduling a check-in, scheduling 10 minutes where we are phone free and we spend time asking each other, what's happening for you? What's this week like? When is our next scan? What may come up on that? What are we worrying about? What are we happy about? All of these things, but actually bringing the communication into your time and space rather than leaving it for when it will happen. And the last thing is mutuality. Now, it may be very easy to feel like the pregnancy, of course, is happening to the woman, and so that's where the action is and that's where the focus is. But it's also a monumental change for fathers, preparing their spaces, preparing their finances, preparing themselves emotionally to gear up to the task of fatherhood can also be very, very challenging. It helps to have some focus on each other and understand what each of you may be going through, and bringing that into communication proactively rather than waiting for issues to crop up. A lot of apps that actually help track pregnancy or track menstrual cycles now actually have a option where The expecting father will get messages or notifications saying, your partner is in this week of pregnancy, and these are the things that are going to happen in this week. So make sure you can check in or make sure you ask her how this is going, etc. It's just such an intentional way of showing that you're actually in the journey with them and it's not two people going through something, in their own silos. So, with those intentions set, awareness, intention, and mutuality, we thought it would be useful for you to take some tangible tools from this workshop because that's the way we actually put our intentions into action. For this, many options can be there, but one takeaway that I have for communicating freely or facilitating ease of communication is a shift from fixing to holding. So very often we have all culprits of this. Our partner comes and says, "We had this problem, this happened, this happened, this happened." I'm really overwhelmed. And instead of supporting the partner in feeling what they're feeling, we feel let's do the marvelous thing by taking the problem away and then we give them a solution. And everyone's aware of what happens after that. Our partner, instead of decompressing, our partner gets even more angry. They may feel unheard. They may feel like, we don't get them. And this is a very powerful shift. Couple of ways to make this sort of a pointer in our mind is when your partner is decompressing about something to you, asking, do you want to be heard? Do you want to be held? Or do you want to be hugged? The need to give a solution is a very ingrained one, and it takes a lot to challenge that in ourselves. But the minute we become a little stable and become a little intentional, saying, okay, tell me what's happening. I'm not going to give you a solution. I just want to hear you out and know that you feel better at the end of it. You'll notice that the person who's struggling will start to feel at ease. And this switch from fixing to listening is also beautifully sort of there in a tool called the stress reducing conversation. This template comes to us from the Gottman Institute, who are basically a pair of couples researchers who've been doing this work for a long time. The stress reducing conversation actually has 5 questions, but here I'd just like you to know that the basic idea is to open the conversation up. It's to say, okay, this happened. What about this was most bothersome? What do you think you need right now? How can I, even though I know I can't change anything, maybe, but how can I be of help to you in this moment? So, what happens with this is the person gets the scope to really speak about what's happening rather than getting a yes, no, or a solution that narrows the conversation so they don't get to walk through the various emotions they are feeling. Over the next slides, of course, we'll share more tools like this. Another thing that may be useful for you are to access the action sheets that are there that Hera has designed. Very often, even when we have the intentions, finding the right words, holding all that information in mind can become really demanding. And the action sheets give you a template that's just directly usable. So make sure you look those up. Yeah. So let's look at intentionally building our relationship. At this point, I'd also like you to pause, take a moment, and think of what is the origin story that we share about our relationship. Do you remember the first time you met? Do you remember the first time you've had the feels about each other? Do you remember a magic moment from that time? Do you remember when things started to feel serious? The pregnancy is a very powerful time to connect back to those stories, those themes, those places, those memories, because the child is an addition to an already existing strong connection that you have. So once you've thought through and sort of gone back to your origin story, I'd like you to take a look at this template. This is called the sound house relationship. Basically helps you see what are the pillars of a good relationship. How do we, prioritize some areas like conflict or getting to know each other, or how do we prioritize communication that is positive? How do we give compliments apart from just fighting or, doing our daily lives? And how, of course, do we go on to create a shared meaning of what it means to be us? The pregnancy is the right time to actually revisit something like this and look at how we are doing on all these domains. So maybe we have very good love maps of each other. We understand, what drives our partner. We know what makes them happy. We know what makes them sad. We know what they're struggling with. But it may have been a long time since we've spoken about those things. So be intentional and set some time and say, let's do this now. Let's talk about our expectations. Similarly, when it comes to conflict, we usually want to deal with conflict when conflict happens. But what if using this and sort of centering on this, you start to take some ideas or decide that you'll unlearn one thing that you do in conflict. So maybe we get all quiet and defensive and leave the situation that can really fuel the conflict for our partner. So we then think of what tools we need to stay a little bit longer and be a little bit more constructive when we are engaged in conflict. All of these details are, of course, available online. But the powerful things to work on at this point may be managing conflict, extending our love maps, because a relationship is not a one time thing. We have to rebuild our relationship and get to know the new people we have become in connection repeatedly to then prep for who we are going to be as parents. Take a look at these stats. These generally speak of how powerful it is when these elements are centered and prioritized by expecting couples. So, all of these things can go a long way in boosting your connection, your mood, and even your overall satisfaction in the relationship. Now comes conflict. Conflict can be managed gracefully, fruitfully, purposefully. That's something that we may or may not have learned in our growing up years, but that's absolutely true. Conflict is not a bad sign in relationships. In fact, conflict is a sign that something really matters to us about the connection and we are willing to fight for it. And considering that, now the pregnancy is going to bring up a whole bunch of conversations, ideas, priorities where we may find ourselves on slightly differing stands, sometimes on very opposing stands. And it can be very difficult to compromise right away, feeling like one person may feel like they're always compromising or their expectations are never met. So once conversations have been had about these things and we have heard the other side out, so using a emotionally stress reducing sort of conversation, that sort of an approach to open up the conversation, it may be important to see what are my side of things, what are your side of things, and how do we marry the two together. To do something like that, we can actually use something called the compromise oval. The compromise oval basically puts these two conflicting sides beside each other and it looks at where is the wiggle room. What are some things I can be flexible about? So, if we want to make a choice about which hospital we want to birth the baby in, we want a natural birth versus a medical birth versus a doctor assisted birth. Which parts are we flexible about? What is practically possible in our situation? Do we have any complications in our pregnancy that may need medically assisted birth? What are the parts of this we can be flexible about? What are the parts of this that are absolutely core? These things can then be spoken of in a way that doesn't feel like it's about me or you, but it's about the problem at hand, and we've laid it out in a way that's external and safe for us. And apart from this, generally, we can move to a more entrenched black and white, all or none kind of thinking in the pregnancy. It may feel like if this does not work this way, there is no point at all. Generally, when something like that's happening, it's something emotional that's been attacked for us. So, when we feel like we don't want to adjust or compromise, it may be for both of us to know that what is the pain point for me here? Maybe I had a dream or a vision of doing something like that, and that's getting taken away. Even if that cannot be resolved in the ideal way, it's very important to be able to talk about the feelings around that frustration, the feelings around not being able to do something in the way that we wanted. And partners need to be equipped to handle these messy, incomplete parts of the story with grace like that. So, another big one, and I'm sure something that's not spoken about as much, is challenges with regard to intimacy. Whether it's sex or even generally how we experience ourselves as sexual beings can change a lot with the pregnancy. Sometimes someone may feel like, my body just does not feel like my body. I don't feel arousal or I don't feel desire. I just want to be left alone. Versus someone could experience pregnancy very differently and feel very, very fantastic and powerful about what their body is doing. And that can really bring in a renewed sense of, I love this, I want this, and I want my partner to sort of adore this body. And partners themselves are also having their own journey in trying to understand and come to terms with the changes in the pregnant person's body. So this has many, many layers and many, many shades. And what may be important is one, of course, to take into account that the changes that are happening are normal, not just in the pregnant person's body, but also how we are relating to that body. Like maybe to be honest about having any fears. A lot of people also have fears about having sex when their partner is pregnant for fear that it could harm the baby. These things need to be spoken about instead of just looking at this as a yes or no for intimacy. The body's changes, the feeling of anxiety, the feeling of not being liked, maybe because I've put on this weight now, are all things that we can speak about. But what this really, of course, needs is to say that, okay, we probably cannot have sex the way we were used to having, but what are other ways in which we can be intimate? What this phase of time actually demands is a way in which we can redefine intimacy to feel like, okay, what about gentle, loving touch? What about sharing a path together? What are different ways in which we can still feel close to our partner, feel held, feel like the physicality of that relationship is honored and protected, even when the previous norm of what was our sexual script is not getting validated. Very often people speak of something called sensate focus, which basically involves in how gentle, slow, mindful touch may feel for both partners at this point as a way of feeling close rather than feeling like sex is only an intercourse. So this redefinition may go a long, long way for couples struggling with this part of the journey. A very powerful way to support each other is, of course, something called companioning. Companioning, in a very simple way, would be an image of two people walking beside each other. It could be very easy to feel like supporting our partners means we need to show them the way. It could also mean that one person knows better, so one person is always trailing. Companioning is a way of holding on to the mutuality of the process, saying, I need your support and I can support you. I don't know better than you, but I want to figure this together with you, right? Because the pregnancy is a very, very open ended, vast journey that the two of you will be taking on. Both of you are essentially becoming parents in whatever routes it takes you into. And it may mean honoring what's coming up for both of you, being open to the difficult parts of the journey, saying, I can't understand that wholly, but I want to be figuring this with you. It may be open to understanding the messy parts of the journey. So, curiosity, grace, empathy, listening, and a sense of walking alongside, saying, I don't know any better than you, but I'm willing to be in it with you all through to the last step, right? It's a very, very powerful way of being. But again, this is also going to need some practice because remember, we spoke about fixing. The fixing will come in the way of companioning and make you feel like I should figure this, I should save you, I should protect you. So it's a journey of trust that the two of you will be taking. And some ways in which you can make this sort of philosophy or this sort of strategy of companioning into your presence is by asking questions like, what can I do to help you? What have you been figuring? Let's figure it out together. Let's ask each other or ask around, what other couples have been doing, and then maybe we can take stock. Companioning, as opposed to fixing, is a bit of a perspective shift and it will only come by with repeated practices. So let's do a quick recap. Of course, in the pregnancy, hormones influence mood, connection, sex. It's really not anyone's fault. It's in the nature of this experience and it helps to be armored with information and strategies so that we can face it well, face it with intention. Don't let communication be something that we just figure out. Be intentional about communication as a skill and learn to apply the tools that we've spoken about. Build your relationship house together, edit the parts of it that have changed since you last connected strongly. It may be very, very powerful to do that in this phase because the gains of it in the long run are huge. It's very, very required also to redefine intimacy. What are the ways in which we can feel close to each other, connected to each other as we are prepping to bring this baby into our lives and walking this path as companions, not just as co parents, not just as two people who are struggling or figuring independently, but as a togetherness of spirit, a togetherness of sort of soul, intellect, empathy, all of those ways of being. Let's look at the next slide. At this point, I'd also like to point you out two resources that are available at HERA. What you have done today is the first step of a long journey to come, and I want to also thank all of you for your effort and intention in sitting through this workshop and talking about these difficult things. I hope these inputs and this session takes you a long way. And feel free to reach out to the HERA team for community support, more information, the action sheets that we mentioned, as well as with any other new questions that you have that we haven't been able to factor into. As always, thank you for being here, and we'll meet you with a new workshop soon.